All right. Hello, welcome back. So today we're going to talk about a few things I learned in some specialized training, but before we get started with that, I wanted to make a comment to a comment that was left on the page or one of the channel pages. So somebody had asked if I'm willing to mentor. Guys, that's why I'm here. I also realize there's going to be, older people who can find some of the things I'm teaching of value too, but my job here, what I've taken on is I'm trying to teach the next generation of mechanics in a little bit more than just the trades, obviously, because we talk about a lot of different things, but mostly the trades, because I realize that a lot of us are kind of bound to a certain life. And if we're going to change that life, it's going to be with their two hands that we made that happen. So I'd like to help you. Obviously, I can't be your two hands, but I can be of service in a lot of regards in saying, email me, test yourself, diesel@gmail.com. Email me. I'll give you an answer. I've talked to a gentleman here. His name's Paul. I've talked to a lot of people so far, but not as many via email. And I'm not trying to get your email addresses, guys. I'm not trying to sell you anything either. I just want to be able to have some kind of knowledge. I'm speaking to somebody, right? And first off, in the modern age, there's a lot of bots and there's a lot of people now on YouTube that weren't on there 10 years ago trying to put things on your page or whatever. So just to keep it the cleanest, I always just give out my email. And if you want to get a hold of me, testyourselfdiesel@gmail.com. And I'm available to you and to mentor, to whatever you need, man. I can give you one-on-one. I'm working out something right now with a Patreon, and I don't really want to charge you guys more than, $5-10 a month. And, I want to help a lot of people. So if it's $5-10 a month, that's going to be just fine to be able to help me out too, to be able to produce bigger and bigger content. Guys, I'd like to buy wiring harnesses and energize them to parts and show you how to troubleshoot them. I don't even need the mechanical inputs for a lot of these things. I can build these boards. I mean, I have great ideas, but I just need the money to do it. So I'm not coming on here for money, though. I mean, that can happen through a number of other ways that I've already talked about, like through advertising. And when you click like and subscribe, it really helps the channel grow. But anyway, you didn't come here for that today, I'm sure. Today, we're going to talk about the things I was privy to in some of the places I went. So we're talking about engineered obsolescence, first off, because, guys, if you don't know about this, then you need to know about this first and foremost. There's only a parts supply chain in about 5 years. There's 5 years worth of parts in the supply chain to support any product as it's produced. And there's usually not much more manufactured unless it's based on some real growth in that market. So what that means is that engineered obsolescence is they built the part to fail. They built it to fail in 5 years. And I know this because when I went to a class that Cummins put on, a guy named Jeremy, his father-in-law, his brother, engineers, they were in the engineering department. He was kind of a rogue one. He was a boat mechanic and made really good money. But anyway, story goes, he's teaching us all and he explains to us, guys, just so you know, there is something built into engineering to where Ford and everyone else are all looking at this going, let's do it for 5 years. Let's build the part for 5 years. So there's no more of that really high quality or high end part. And if there is, it's not still not made to last more than 5 years. So what does that mean as far as like the wholesalers who can buy the mass batches, right? And then there's scarcity amongst the rest of us. So what I want you to really think about too is that parts are the linchpin of this operation here in working on things. So if I'm a diagnostician, I don't always need parts. Sometimes I can leave that to the customer to source his own parts at his best, the most efficient way he can. I don't stand behind the parts they install, right? And I don't install parts. Usually, I have no problem installing them provided by the customer, but I don't mark them up because we talked about this. You go into your own business, don't get into the parts scam because it's from 300% over all the way down to 30%, depending on where you're hitting in that price point. But still, it's all of the back end of that profit goes towards accounting, admin, all these other people that have to be involved. When you don't need that, you can get the part and do a solid by just providing the service. So oil filters with no plastic. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but there's been some shit through the supply chain here that's feeding all kinds of engines, and it's been things as bad as oil filters. I've never seen one just in no plastic and no. It's supposed to be hermetically sealed because any debris goes right to the main bearings. When we're putting oil inside of an oil filter, we only put it on the outside. It has to go in really slowly. A lot of people don't have the patience for it, and I can't swear to you every time I have. But the way it's supposed to go is filtration comes through the center, right? that's where the bung is. So if that's the case, and it has to go through those pleats first, if you dump it in the center, you're putting contaminated oil in there. Just remember that. Anything that goes in the center. And things like the 5-year or the lowest quality of parts in history. I mean, who else? I mean, everyone else out there hanging parts understands that there's parts that we are seeing that don't belong inside of a vehicle that probably look like they came from the back room, like the core department or something where they got returned and they got resold. It's really odd. Hoarding of parts by big companies. We talked about Asplund one time when they asked me to put a whole DPF system on. And I told them, listen, we can't get those for a year there. Everyone's telling me there's no available. And he materialized all the parts, or it would have materialized. I declined to do the job. And it was because they had warehouses full of them. So basically they were choking off small businesses by having these parts available that they couldn't get their hands on. So if they leaned on parts to pay the bills, then they were out of business. There's no more old timers in the trades. So there are some, obviously some, but there used to be a lot of them. I was trained by guys who were 50 and 60 years old, and I mean, really knew their stuff about how to adjust and measure everything, and very detailed guys. But if you look at the crop now, a lot of the average age of the top 10% is 44 years old, making 67 grand. And these are the figures, guys. I mean, obviously there's outliers there. There's a spectrum, but by and large, the people who are doing these highly technical jobs now, they need to look in towards the future, especially if you're involved in cars, guys. I'm telling you, I just see it because, what was the joy of having a car? Souping it up, going for a ride. What about if it's self-driving? What about if you can't meet emissions? What I'm saying is that the crunch has come, and it seems like it's either the time to get out and recognize what's in front of you, or be stubborn and end up, on hind teat. So it seems to me like right now is the time to get into really important equipment that's never going to stop rolling. And if it does, it's going to have to roll with another power plant inside of it that can be learned. I'm guaranteeing you it can be learned. These Tesla things, these Edison, I've seen, there's a guy named Inventor Michael. He's working on doing something with a semi and hydrogen. And look them up, man. These guys, this is flourishing. And if you look at all the documentaries about the future, they're talking about advancing the technology to where we're no longer using the internal combustion engine. But this is the future. These ESGs, these things given to companies because they're green. If you're an ISO company, you have to meet emissions compliance. All these things are being tax credited to these businesses and making them allow us to stay in contention, while a lot of the other businesses without that and parts are going under. Look around. I talked to a guy when I was driving my Humvee last year in Denver, and I had driven down there to do a job from about 4 hours away, and I stopped at a gas station. This guy was checking out my Humvee, and he ended up owning a body shop. He owned several of them. Or no, I'm sorry. There were several of them in the area that he owned his. What happened during COVID is none of them could source parts, and every single one of them went out of business except this guy. Now, he had a big operation. But how many of us are sitting there just basically teetering on the fact of whether or not they deliver the parts next week? Especially you flat rate guys. What are you billing out if you're really leaning on parts availability that's just not there? So I ask you, or I guess I'm just throwing it out there. Be forward thinking, and that you don't get left behind. Because if you plan on being in this trade for the next 20 years, it's going to be a far different car than you ever had intended to work on. And I hear a lot of people saying, I lost my passion. Well, if you work on big trucks, maybe you might find your passion back with working on cars. When I was working for semis, I had a 69 Cougar I restored. All the way down to bare metal. When I had to go raise all my kids, I lost that vehicle for $175, along with my dress blues and a storage unit. Sometimes you lose shit. You can't be too materialistic. But if you want to buy a house, you guys got to make enough money to buy a house. You got to show the man, hey, I make enough to buy this house. And you can't do that if you don't walk in there with $100 grand or more on paper, especially with the way housing markets are going. This is my 2 cents. Like I said, I got 9 kids. They're in their 20s, early 20s, and they're not, but one of them is at least. And I think about the future for the next generation, and that's why I'm so vested and so bought in. And that's why I'm spending the time here to teach you, because I believe that you guys really will determine whether or not this country continues to roll. Okay. And I also, from the blue collar side of it, I want to know that I did what I could to help out other blue collar guys, just like someone helped me. And now I can afford that opportunity to somebody else, and I didn't pay for it. Guys gave me their time. That's why I don't want you paying for something unless it's something where we're taking hours and hours of time to try to get you up to speed. And then maybe just because I have to bill out enough time to feed a family, I might do a Patreon where it's $5-10. But we're not here to make money. We're here as a mentor, as a assistant, as a resource to anybody who wants to know how to either do this for yourself or uh, how to look towards the future to see what wages we really can be looking at. All these things are topics that we bring up here because these are the things I think about in the future will determine people who are stricken with poverty and downtrodden, or those who can provide for themselves. And it's going to be largely based on skills, guys. Okay, thank you.